Welcome back to Don't Leave with Mary Crocker Cook. Today, we will address the third part of our codependency definition. Ultimately, codependency is a chronic stress disease which can devastate our immune system and lead to systemic and even life threatening illness. Let's see how this works. The immune system is the body's master operating system. So, what happens in the brain in childhood sets up lifelong programming for this master operating system governing all our body, our brain, and our mind. The unifying principle of this new theory of everything is that your emotional biography becomes your physical biology. And together they write much of the script for how you will live your life. So, how does the normal stress response work? Let's say you're lying in bed and everyone else is already asleep. It's 1 a.m. and you hear a creak on the steps, and then another creak. Now it sounds like there's someone in the hallway. You feel a sudden rush of alertness, and even before your conscious mind weighs the possibility of what's going on. A small region in your brain, known as the hypothalamus, releases hormones that stimulate two little glands, the pituitary and the adrenal glands, to pump chemicals throughout your body. Adrenaline and cortisol trigger immune cells to secrete powerful messenger molecules that whip up your body's immune response. Your pulse drums under your skin as you lie there listening. The hair on the surface of your arms stands up, your muscles tighten, and your body gets charged up to do battle. This is the part of your brain designed to keep you from being eaten by tigers. Then you recognize those footsteps as those of your teenager coming up the steps after finishing his midnight bowl of cereal. Your body relaxes, your muscles loosen, the hair on your arms flattens down, your hypothalamus, as well as your pituitary and adrenal glands, the HPA stress axis calms down. After the stressful event, your body dampens down the fight or flight response, your system recovers and returns to a baseline state of rest and recovery. Now, emotions create the same response. When we experience stressful emotions, anger, fear, worry, anxiety, rumination, the HPA axis releases stress hormones, including cortisol and inflammatory cytokines that promote inflammation. More subtle type of tissue damage can happen slowly over time in response to chronic stress. So when your body is repeatedly overstimulated, it begins to downshift in response to stress. And on the face of it, that might seem like a good thing, as if downshifted stress response should translate into less inflammation, right? But remember, your stress response is supposed to react to a big stressor, pump into defensive action, and then quickly recover and return to a state of quiet homeostasis, relaxing into rest and recovery. The problem is when you're facing a lot of chronic stress, the stress response never shuts off. You're caught perpetually in the first half of the stress cycle. There is no state of recovery. Instead, the stress response is always mildly on, pumping out chronic low dose of inflammatory chemicals. The stress glands, the hypothalamus, and the HPA axis are secreting low levels of stress hormones all the time, leading to chronic cytokine activity and inflammation. Simply put, chronic stress leads to dysregulation of our stress hormones, which leads to unregulated inflammation, and inflammation translates into symptoms and disease. This is why there's a significant link between individuals who experience chronic stress and significantly higher levels of inflammation and disease. When it comes to managing and reducing stress quickly in the middle of a heated situation, it's important to be familiar with your particular stress response. Some of us fight. We have an overexcited stress response. If you tend to become angry, agitated, or keyed up under stress, you respond better to stress relief activities that quiet your system down. If you tend to have a flight or underexcited stress response and become depressed, withdrawn, or spaced out under stress, You respond best to stress relief activities that are stimulating and energize your nervous system. If you have a frozen response, both overexcited and underexcited, you tend to freeze, speeding it up in some ways while slowing down in others. You tend to check out or leave your body. Your challenge is to identify stress relief activities that allow you to feel safe to inhabit your body and feel centered. Remember, excessive stress does not always show up as a feeling or emotion of being stressed. Many stresses go directly into our physical body and may only be recognized by the physical symptoms we manifest. Two excellent examples of this are things like eye twitching or teeth grinding. Conversely, we may feel a lot of emotional stress in our emotional body, but not even notice our physical signs and symptoms. Fortunately, many of us have what's called resilient wobble. Resilient people have what psychologists call wobble, the ability to waver under the weight of life suffering and trauma, but not fall down. Okay, here we have a psychobabble alert. Psychiatrists refer to the amount of trauma we experience over the course of our lives and the cumulative effect of the trauma. How much wear and tear it takes on our body, our brain, and our mind as our allostatic load. This term, coined by Bruce McEwen, is derived from allostasis, the ability to adapt over time to the stressful emotional and physical trials we encounter, and then return back to homeostasis. We wobble, we recover, and we get back to living our lives. Dr. Mark Seary had been searching for the upside of adversity, and he was asking whether some stress exposure might make people stronger over the long term. Seary had hundreds of patients who suffered from chronic debilitating back pain complete a survey about their lifetime exposure to 37 different types of stressful experiences. Patients who had experienced absolutely no prior adversity in their childhood fared just as poorly as those who experienced high levels of adversity, he said. In other words, participants who had a score of 0 on childhood adversity questions, including mild stressors, were just as likely to be deeply disabled by their back pain and seek treatment for anxiety and depression as were those who had experienced significant levels of adversity when they were young. On the other hand, patients who met up with some adversity when they were young, but not too much, were least likely to be disabled due to back pain in later life or seek treatment for anxiety or depression. Experiencing the right dose of hardship as a child or teenager helped to build coping skills, resilience, and perspective to meet the challenge of dealing with debilitating chronic pain in one's adult life. Keep in mind that biology is not destiny. We can reboot our brains, we can regain muscle tone, we can recover function in the interconnected parts of the brain. The brain and the body are never static, they're always becoming and changing. Even if we've been set on a high reactive mode for decades or a lifetime, we can still dial it down. We can respond to life's inevitable stressors more appropriately and shift away from the overreactive inflammatory response and become neurobiologically resilient. So, thank you for joining me again to continue our exploration of codependency and addiction. And I look forward to our visit next week. Take care.